You're listening to episode 189 of the D6 podcast.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 podcast. Here's your hosts, Ron Hunter and Jeremy Lee.
This is the family ministry podcast that helps you connect the church and home. How you doing today, Ron?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Jeremy?
I kind of surprised you.
You did.
Hey, there are, rappers, when they come out on stage, they have a hype person, a hype man.
Yes. You're that hype person.
That's right. I'm a good hype person. And athletes, sometimes they come into the professional leagues with a lot of hype.
Yes. You're the cheerleader.
Sometimes a musician will have a lot of hype, and
so which one is the
build up?
Which musician has the hype? I'm not a musical person. So.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm trying to make an example. Just hold on. So here's my thing. Our guest today has had a lot of hype with me. Like, you have hyped her up.
I have hyped her up. You're right.
You have been her hype man.
I have
for over a year now.
Yes.
And
because I've known this book was coming for a while, and that she was going to be speaking at our biggest conference.
Lissy Rienow is this young lady you had told me is incredibly impressive, and you know what? She lived up to all the hype when I met this young lady. What a fabulous! I said earlier off air that if I could only just have a small portion of my life together at the age that she's at. I mean, she is just a really cool young leader and with really neat thoughts, and I enjoyed my time with her.
She is so more mature than I was at her age. I won't
Absolutely.
say than her peers. I don't want to. If her peers are listening, I don't know you, but I know she's far more mature than I was at her age. And on top of that, she has had the development of an incredible set of parents with Rob and Amy Rienow, which have been guests on this podcast in the past. She's got siblings she has to deal with. And I say that lovingly because she comes from a large family. She's not the one getting all their attention, but yet she gets incredible attention from her parents. I've watched those family dynamics. And, for those that don't know this story, I'll tell the story because I think it's important. It's been a long time since we've talked about it.
Sure. We
had Lissy on a D6 Connect tour a little over a year ago, and it was a year and a half ago, actually. And we were doing a multi-city tour, and there were 4 of us speaking. Our guest from last week, Dr. Edward Moody. We had Lissy's mom, Amy, myself, and Lissy were the 4 speakers on this tour. In every city, we'd all speak for about 15 minutes. We'd have a box lunch, and then we'd go into a panel discussion. And then people would get to ask questions about different topics that we all spoke about. And Lissy's topic that she spoke on was from the perspective of a teenager, and how when moms and dads are trying to guide and disciple their kids, how do their kids understand it? And how do you get at my heart when, and this is the classic one that I've heard her say, and she very well could say it in the interview, I go to school, my teachers think I'm the wonderful kid. Most of my friends' parents think that I'm the wonderful kid, but when I come home, all I hear is negativity from you as parents. And, Amy and Rob thought, hold it, we do need to affirm. We do, and kind of have to back up a little bit over how do we disciple our kids? Is it always corrective or is it affirming? How do we get the scripture into their minds to where they don't resent it? And that was the topic she spoke on. And when we got to that panel discussion, Dr. Moody, Amy and myself were twiddling our thumbs as everybody in the room wanted to ask Amy's opinion and get her insight as they are trying to deal with their teenagers. That's when I knew this was going to be a brilliant book idea.
That's awesome. We're going to hear more from her in just a second. But one of the tools that you guys have put together at D6 Family in order to be able to create that environment
and have those conversations
where those kind of conversations can happen are the devotional study guides, and that's kind of what we have marked today to kind of share with our listeners. Tell us more about devotional study guides.
I'll hit it in just a couple of sentences here. You are looking for ways to connect to your kid's heart, and what better item to do it than around your shared devotional times. You don't have to get everybody together. If everybody has their own devotional magazines that aligns everybody, then when you are together, you say, hey, I was reading so-and-so. How's your reading gone? And just ask that, not with guilt, not with shame, just probing, just creating conversation. And the holidays is a time when our rhythms and routines of work and expectations tend to slow down as far as a schedule. And this is a good time to begin that habit going into the new year. And so I would encourage you to consider starting with these family-aligned devotionals. So, yeah, you can go buy a devotional that's written by some brilliant people, but they're not aligned for each of your family members so you can share conversation. So if you want to go do another study, and I won't call names of brilliant people who have written them, do it, but also do one that aligns the conversations for you to have with your family.
I love it. So Lissy Rienow has this new book and a great topic. You guys will enjoy the interview. I promise it was one of my favorites from the conference. We'll be back right after the break with Lissy Rienow. Well, hey, everybody, we are here with kind of the breakout star of the D6 conference, the way I'm hearing it. Lissy Rienow is here. She's 20 years old. She has one older brother and 5 younger siblings. She has a passion for helping teens live for Christ at home. Family relationships are hard, and we all need biblical encouragement. She's a student at Lipscomb University in Nashville, Tennessee, serving with Visionary Family Ministry. She speaks at youth and family ministry events around the country, writes Bible studies for teens, and she's the author of The Heart of Your Teen. See? Are you proud that I brought your book?
Yes.
I went and stole it from the table.
Oh,
real quick.
perfect.
So, no, it's a really great book. We're going to talk about it here in just a second. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk a little bit in a second why I called you the breakout star, but before we go too far, you've led a cool session while you're here where you share insights from interviews that you conducted with other kind of teenagers and young people, and it brought some insights from their perspective on how they were raised in a spiritual way.
Yeah, so that workshop specifically was talking about a lot of the content that was going to be in the heart of your teen. And really, when I started working on this project with Randall House, my main concern when they asked me to kind of share about my experience as a teenager was that my experience growing up with my parents is a pretty unique experience, and it's not going to be the same for a lot of other teenagers and a lot of other families. And so I was like, how am I supposed to write a book based on just how I grew up, because that's just not going to cover all sides of this issue. And so really what I started doing was interviewing teenagers from kind of the most diverse family backgrounds I could find. So Christian parents, non-Christian parents, divorced parents, maybe a parent that died, adopted parents, foster parents. Tried to get a bunch of different schools involved too, so public school, private school, homeschool, just to the best of my abilities, trying to get as many different opinions as we could for the book. And really it was through those interviews that I really became excited about the project, because some of the things that the teenagers shared were just really profound and just really made me realize what an important message that this was for parents to hear. And some of the things that really stood out the most, or what was the craziest part to me, was even though these teenagers came from such different families, all of their answers were almost exactly the same. And some of the things that really stood out were like, I wish my parents would ask me more intentional questions about my life. I wish my parents would pray more at home. I wish they would read the Bible more at home. I wish my parents taught me more about, accountability with my technology. I wish that they tried to have a relationship with me instead of just telling me what to do. And so those themes just kept coming through loud and clear. And so the heart of your teen really just arises from encouraging parents just to never stop pursuing the heart of their teenager, because with the teens that I talked to, a lot of them were just, they were just crying out, really just in their relationships with their parents. And so it was really just incredible talking to them.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you the story the way it was told to me. You were invited to go on the Connect tour, the D6 Connect tour, where you went through a couple of local churches. And your mom was there, Ron Hunter was there, there was somebody else.
Dr. Moody was there.
Dr. Moody was there. Just a lot of amazing speakers.
Yes.
You're 20 years old. This is like one of the first times you've ever presented. And you're kind of there as, I think in their minds, as kind of a nice little add-on, a nice little feature, right? And then all of a sudden you present some of the material you've been working on, and when it came time for Q&A, nobody wanted to talk to the rest of the panel. They all wanted. This is from the words of Ron Hunter. He's like, Jeremy, no, they didn't even care we were there. They all wanted to talk to Lissy, and all of a sudden, in that moment, you started to become, in this family ministry movement, you started to become the voice on behalf of the kids, because we're hearing from parents and the adults all the time, but we don't hear a lot from the side of the kids. And people wanted more, and they wanted more, and they wanted more, and that's where this book came from.
Yeah.
So tell me your side of that story. What did you learn by doing the Connect tour, and what was that like?
Yeah. So really, I got started on just this journey of speaking and writing really after high school. So I graduated high school in 2017, and I decided to take a gap year. So I spent half the year at home working with my dad, and the other half of the year I did an internship overseas working with a ministry in Scotland. But it was during the time that I was home that I started doing some blog posts for Visionary Family Ministries, and really where I've found just a lot of passion for really getting involved in our ministry was I've grown up in the family discipleship world. That's where my parents are involved. I've been to the D6 conference basically since it started, so I've really grown up hearing these messages given to parents over and over again about how they can be the primary spiritual disciplers of their kids. But I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, all of these churches are encouraging parents about, how to have better family relationships and how to reach their kids, but who's talking to the kids about catching a vision for family discipleship? Who's talking to the kids about what it means to honor your parents and love your siblings and be a servant leader in your house? And I think for teenagers, family relationships are really hard, and living out your faith at home, to me, that's the hardest place to be a Christian, is at home with your family, because they love you the most, but they also get the worst of your personality. And that's certainly true for me in my high school experience, for sure. And so I began doing blog posts for teenagers, and I wrote a devotional called Living for Christ at Home that just provides some basic encouragement and walks through some scriptures of how teenagers can live for Christ at home in their family relationships. And so it was through that devotional that I ended up getting connected with Randall House. And it was on the Connect tour that I shared this message with church leaders of just encouraging them, hey, this family discipleship movement, it can't just stop with the parents. It has to be communicated to the kids and the teenagers also. Because these heart-connected relationships, it's a two-way street. You can't have one side without the other. And so we have to be tackling this from both sides, not just for the parents. And so after that tour, it's funny because I was really, really hoping to do a book project with Randall House, but I was hoping to write a book for teenagers, because I was like, that's my thing. That's what I feel passionate about. That's what I feel like God's calling me to do. And so when Randall House approached me and they were like, hey, we really would be interested in you writing a book for parents, I was not excited at all. I was like, I would not even know where to begin. I hadn't thought about it. I was like, maybe I could write 2 pages on that subject. Like, maybe, but certainly not a full book. And so I was just thinking about it and praying about it, and my parents were like, Lissy, if God is opening up this door for you, and I was 19 at the time, they were like, walk through it and see what happens, and just, that's really all you can do. And so that's when I started doing interviews with teens, and I submitted a book proposal to Randall House. And then during my freshman year of college, I worked on the book and just found that it was a subject that I actually was really passionate about, and things that really needed to be shared. But it really was just the Holy Spirit was just so involved in the whole process, because even this past summer, I was submitting my final manuscript. It was like about to click send, and I was giving it a last look over, and I was reading through it, and I was like, I don't even know where I came up with half this stuff. I mean, it's just been a really cool opportunity to see how God can open up doors, and I never thought I would be doing anything like this, but I'm so grateful and thankful.
Okay, I get it. So if I'm a youth minister right now, and you're listening to this, I'm booking Lissy Rienow to come to my church right now to come talk to the teenagers in my group about their role in family discipleship. Wow. I get it. Mm-hmm. Man, you said you have a unique experience. Mm-hmm. I mean, both of your parents, they literally wrote the book.
Yeah.
Visionary Parenting. Great leaders, love them, respect them. They're just fabulous, and I know you do too. I've got this kind of concept that I think about sometimes with parents when I talk about rebel and repeat. Like, I love to ask people, what are the things that you, as you were raised, that you're going to repeat? Mm-hmm. But then, what are the things that you feel like you want to do different? I'm not asking you at all to embarrass your parents.
No, totally.
But I want you to think about how you would do things differently. So I'd love to hear both of those from you.
Well, it's really funny that you asked that, because as I was doing interviews with these teens, those were actually the questions that I asked. So my two main questions were, what did your parents do really well in high school to help build a relationship with you? And what's something that you wish they had done differently? Mm-hmm. So it really made me even just think and look back on, what did my parents do that was really helpful? And then what are some things that I would change?
Because no one's perfect.
Right, right. Oh, yeah. It was a bumpy road for sure. But I think as far as things that I would really like to repeat, I mean, my parents, just their level of spiritual intentionality was really incredible. And I think that one thing that really has just stuck with me as I've transitioned into college and living more independently is that my parents just made a really huge effort to just express their, undying commitment to me. And I just remember my mom saying to me in high school, even in the midst of really difficult conversations or situations, being like, Lissy, I'm so proud of you. I'm never going to stop loving you. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, I just want you to know that I'm committed to you in love and in prayer. And that's just such an amazing thing to hear from a parent, just to know that they're committed to you. I think the other thing, too, my mom would say to me, she was like, Lissy, I'm the safest person in the world for you to talk to. If you're dealing with something, I want you to know that, I'm a safe person for you to talk to about that. And I think that a lot of teens don't feel that way with their parents. I think they're afraid to share things with their parents out of, fear of rejection or judgment or anger. And so I think that's just a really powerful thing that I want to replicate as a parent, of that my kids know, no matter what, I'm the safest person in the world for you to come talk to about what you're dealing with and what you're struggling with. So that was just huge for me in high school. Huge. And as far as things that I wish they had done differently, it's kind of funny because I have an older brother. He's 2 years older than me. And we are very different. I think my parents talk a lot about firstborn kids, and he's the firstborn son and I'm the firstborn daughter. And there's a sermon by S.M. Davis that says, your firstborn typically falls into two traps, either the trap of bitterness or the trap of pride. And so my older brother definitely fell more into the trap of pride. I mean, he definitely was a lot more prideful of his privileges. But because of that, he tended to be pretty compliant. I mean, he didn't really give my parents much pushback when he was in high school, and so he was a relatively easygoing kid. I mean, he had his own issues for sure, but as far as parental conflict and things like that, I mean, he was pretty smooth sailing. Now, for me, I definitely fall more into the trap of bitterness for sure, and I am very strong-willed, especially in high school. And so I just gave my parents a lot more pushback, and I tended to be a lot more defiant. And there was definitely a lot of ups and downs in just the way that I handled things and my parents handled things, because for me, like, you know, I was their first daughter, and this was their first time dealing with a kid who was having these defiance issues compared to my brother, who that just wasn't as big of a problem. And so that I think now, like, looking back on that and having just a lot more perspective on sort of the parent-teen relationship, I'm just really grateful, honestly, because, I mean, God really had to do a work in my heart to point out just immaturities in me that I could see, or that I couldn't see, and my parents could see while I was in high school. But I've just been really thankful just to have that perspective now, even just as I'm thinking about the kind of parent that I want to be in the future, of just kind of knowing what went well for me and my parents, and then, you know, if I have a kid who's like that, some things that I would want to do differently too.
Good. And you answered that really well too. Very good.
I was trying to be as gracious as possible.
I was about to say, I wasn't trying to set you up, and you did great. You've got another really interesting perspective to share, which is that you're a minister's kid.
Yeah.
I don't think there's so much out there to encourage and help ministers, and I get to see a lot of it sitting in this chair interviewing folks. So few people are trying to help ministers' kids. I am one, so I get it a little bit. And I wish there were more. So you need to do that, please. And let's start right now.
Yeah.
What is some encouragement you might have for ministers' kids?
Yeah. I mean, it can be really hard. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this, but sometimes you feel like you're living under a magnifying glass. And that can be really difficult when your life is kind of on the big stage for everyone to comment on and talk about. And so it can be really difficult. Something that I think is just really helpful for me, and this is something my parents, I think, also did well when it came to just opinions of people at church or just what people would say, is that my parents just made it pretty clear that, like, they were like, you know what, we're going to make these decisions for our family. And, like, when it came to things, like certain decisions, like my dad, like, he was going to have the final authority on that. And so it didn't matter what this person said. It didn't matter what this person said. As long as my dad said it was okay, I mean, I'm good. Because, you know, he's the one that has authority over me, not all those other people. And I also would just send out an encouragement to people who are pastors' kids, that they have such an influence. I mean, really, something that I've found is that, you know, it's not just the pastor doing the ministry. It's the whole family, because people are looking at the whole family. They want to see if it's legit, like if the guy up on stage is actually living out the things that he's preaching. So I think that it's just such a unique opportunity to be able to reach out and bless people, because we've really found in our ministry that our ministry is 10 times more effective when we can be all together as a family, because it just reaches such a broader audience of me and my siblings being able to connect with other people's kids and have fun with them and play games with them, and my mom's able to connect with other moms. And so I think just really looking out for those opportunities, because you just don't know what kind of influence you're having, and you can really be a blessing to people.
Well, you're incredibly impressive, and I can just really see a uniqueness about you that's super cool. So where are we going from here? What I mean, you got your book, and you're only 20. Most people spend their whole lifetime and don't get to have that. So what are we doing next?
It's a great question. Honestly, I just feel like I've been going kind of 100 miles a minute since I began on this whole journey with Randall House, because, you know, I spent the whole year writing this book, and then it came out, and then I've just spent the last month preparing for the D6 conference. And so after this conference is over, I'm just kind of feeling this, like, sort of just sigh of relief, because it was like I knew all of these things were coming. But really what my vision would be in the future is, now that The Heart of Your Teen is out, what I would absolutely love to do is write a second book that's a partner book, that's written for teenagers, that it kind of can be bought sort of together. Parents read a book, teenagers read a book, and those things kind of fit with each other. That's what I would love to do. But I also would really love to speak more. Right now I speak to youth groups about once a month, kind of in the Nashville area where I go to school, or the Chicagoland area. And so now that I'm not writing a book, I would love to be able to just do some more speaking at youth groups, or talking to parents more about the Heart of Your Teen project. So we'll see. Very open to whatever God has.
If somebody wants to bring you to their church, they can go to visionaryfam.com.
Yes.
And that's where they can see more of your work as well. Well, Lissy Rienow, I do believe I'm the last thing on your schedule at the D6 conference. So what that means is job well done. Now go and swim and have fun and do whatever it is you need to do. But you have done a great job here, and I am really honored to meet you. And thank you for being a part of the D6 podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So one of the things that I can feel after listening to that is that I'm old, man. I'm just old.
I hear you. I feel that way being around her, too. She has a lot of energy. She's very insightful. And she's so diplomatic for her age. A lot of kids her age, sorry, Lissy, I said kids. A lot of young ladies her age, are a little more snarky and she's not. She's so humble. She's going to be such a great leader. She already is. Mm-hmm. But I believe one day she's going to be running an organization somewhere, pouring her life into other people. Mm-hmm. I believe in that young lady a lot.
Well, I hope you guys now believe in her, too, after listening to just a little bit. And you can check out her book by going to d6family.com.
The Heart of Your Teen.
The Heart of Your Teen. So check that out. I hope you guys will enjoy that as well. She also is available to speak, too. We talked about that in the interview. She's
a college student, so she should fit it into her college schedule. But, yes, I would reach out to her.
So next week, we have our friend, Mr. Johnny W.
That'll be fun.
He's always brings the comedy and the fun to the conference. And I'm not always able to go into the main room, but I can always tell when he's performing because I can hear the laughter outside.
Yes.
And we had a good time when he came by the interview desk. We had a lot of fun. So we'll be with Johnny W. next week, so it'll be a little more lighthearted, and it'll be a good time. So please join us next week, and I hope this week you have a great week of ministry.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at disciplinefamily.com.